Happy Saturday from sunny California. This is Stephanie Piche, and I'm chatting with you live from Santa Monica, California, the coastal city within the greater Los Angeles area. So I've made some notes to give you a few tips and tidbits and things about my trip here. So it may sound a little bit different, especially because I'm not actually talking to anybody except for myself right now in my Airbnb. So people who live here in Santa Monica are called Westsiders. I'm not sure if they named themselves that or someone else named them that. And they're fiercely loyal to keeping this area different than the rest of LA. They have their own priorities, their own trends, their own style. And although they're proud to be part of Los Angeles and its international fame, they're just as proud to sit on the beach and watch the hustle from here. And if you didn't know that, it is one of National Geographic's top 10 beach cities in the world. So I've been an Airbnb, like I mentioned. For the first time, I've actually always been a hotel girl, so this is kind of new for me. It's been a great choice for us in this area. It's situated in a residential part of the city, within a couple blocks from all the shopping and touristy stuff. But because it's a little quieter area, it really allows us to feel more like a true local. So speaking of local, their food and drink offerings here really do focus on what's in season, what can be sourced locally, and what is healthy, because of course everyone does hang out at the beach, by the way. So restaurant styles can range from classic American to spicy noodle bowls to entire menus focused only on salads. Yes, I actually saw a salad shop. They have learned to be creative with local ingredients available to introduce the recognizable in a new way. So like Brussels sprouts on a pizza, glazed roasted squash with the cheese plates. Less baskets of bread here and more snack offerings like roasted corn nuts and apple slices. And if they do make bread, they're going to be light as air, super cheesy breadsticks or something just as luxurious. So the overall style of most of the restaurants in this Pacific side of LA are airy, they're open, they're bustling, and they're usually described as upscale casual, I would say. There's always a few casual cafes and takeout places in between, so you don't always have to feel like you're going out for a meal. It's a very relaxed vibe here. So for prices, Canadians might find it a little higher than at home, but portion sizes have been more than generous, and I've learned to share plates with Norm occasionally, or just opt for one course unless I'm absolutely sure I can eat a second one, or if I'm planning for leftovers to eat back at my Airbnb the next day. I like to stick to my works for me travel rule of a works for me kind of travel rule of a light breakfast, like a fruit cup, piece of fresh fruit, coffee, maybe a baked item. Today, I had a carrot and walnut cupcake from where I had dinner last night. See, smart. Lunch is out usually wherever I'm exploring. And I like it to be long and leisurely. Sometimes I'm actually working, like on this podcast, or I just have a fantastic view that really makes me not want to move my butt. Dinner reservations are always done in advance, and those are the one things I plan out ahead of time because I really don't want to be disappointed by missing out on a new hot place to dine or get stuck with either a super early or super late dining time because nobody wants that if you don't eat like that at home. And finally, wines, because we are in California after all. So just like every wine region or country you visit, this is not the time to try wines that you always have had back at home. In Canada, we don't get access to all of the best that these places produce, so it's a good way to sample some of the area's finest. I have noticed that the wine lists aren't overly extensive in most restaurants, even a wine bar or two, but they are concise and they're interesting, so things that you wouldn't normally expect to see. Prices, again, might be a little higher, so I'm seeing an average of about $15 to $18 a glass. But keep in mind that the pours may also be bigger. So I found a new little wine bar here in Santa Monica, Esther's Wine Bar and Shop, and they actually had half glasses and offered small tastes, but I just had to ask, which was great. There are so many stereotypes about California and how they eat, drink, etc. but the rumors are kind of true. From the time that I arrived yesterday afternoon, our very first stop for lunch really celebrated local produce, local cuisine. There's artwork that talk about saving water. There's a very farm-to-table thing that's very hip here right now. Most of the items on the menus that I've seen so far, they're still comforting. There's still some comfort food elements. Yes, there's still some meat, but for the most part, everything seems to be healthy. And one of the favorite things that I find, not just here in California, but in the States, that I'm hoping that maybe in Canada, outside of the big centers, start adopting this policy a little bit more, is to make healthier snacks more accessible everywhere. Meaning, not just grocery stores and their quick service stuff they have at the front of the grocery store, but also in convenience stores. So yesterday, because we're here in an Airbnb, I decided to always kind of look for the closest grocery store, market, someplace where I can grab bottled water if I need it, juices, coffee, tea, little snacks, that kind of thing, just to sort of stockpile the kitchen from while I'm away. And one of the things that I noticed, because I don't necessarily go out for breakfast, I tend to eat more inside and work like I am now, is that there's always these really great options available right in the closest corner store. So little fruit cups that are a perfect portion, and they come in a variety depending on what's in season. So you get, this morning I had apples, grapes, pineapple, I think there was a piece of melon, but it was all fresh and crisp and no browning. Like it was really well done. Oh, then of course there was some grapes in there too, which is one of my favorites. And then they even have, besides just standard cheese and crackers, like it's a piece of string cheese, fresh cherry tomatoes. Yes, there's a couple of little Premium Plus crackers in there. Shout out to Premium Plus. And then a couple of hard-boiled eggs. So that's all ready to go in a little container that you can take with you if you happen to be going down to the beach for the day, if you happen to be just wanting to have a snack on hand in between meals throughout the day. So there's just a lot of great options like that. Fresh fruit, of course, granola bars, lots of different options for juices, smoothies, teas, all different sugar levels and contents besides your standard snacks and everything. And not to mention, some of them are really incorporating some hot to-go food service. So you can pick up stuff that you need for the afternoon to wander around by the beach, but there's nothing stopping you from grabbing a fresh pizza they just took out of the oven, or grabbing one of their little fresh made salads that they just put in containers and threw on the shelf. So it's kind of like a half cafe thing and then half grab and go. So it's a really kind of a cool option, and I find them more and more here in the States, especially in the larger cities like Los Angeles area. New York does them well, and I've noticed them in other cities, Nashville, Tennessee. There's just more people looking for those kind of quick, healthier options. So I'm going to include in the show notes for this coming episode on Saturday. It is going to be March 24th on Saturday, but there's going to be a link in there to a cool little video from Vox Media talking about why it's actually cheaper to eat unhealthy foods. And then they offer a couple of cool strategies to make things more accessible for people who maybe can't afford to have those more expensive but healthier options, and things that maybe you can look into integrating into your own local community to make everybody healthier. Jose Andres. He is one of my favorite chefs right now, not just because he's a phenomenal chef in his own right, but I love how he kind of blends his expertise, his love of good food, with really charitable efforts. And to give you a little bit of a background on it, his website says that he was named Outstanding Chef by the James Beard Foundation. Pretty cool. He was recognized by Time Magazine on the Time 100 list of most influential people in the world. Even more cool. And he's an internationally recognized culinary innovator, and he's a passionate advocate for food. He's a Spanish-American chef, which means he was born in Spain and he lives here in the U.S., and he's often credited for bringing that small plates dining concept here to North America. He owns restaurants in Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Florida, and Puerto Rico. So you can read more about his charitable efforts, bio, and restaurants on his website. I've included the link in the show notes. Of course, this week is episode 32, so that is stephaniepichet.ca/flavor32. My favorite current story about Jose Andres is how he gathered some of his chef friends over this last year to pick up the slack in getting food to the people who needed it in Puerto Rico. After serving about 2 million meals as of November 2017 or thereabouts, they've kind of scaled back their operations, and there's still some local within that team that he put together that are still there trying to help whoever they can. But unfortunately, his expertise in these kind of things is now being needed in other areas in the U.S., like Houston, of course, Northern California. There's so many things that they had to deal with over the year that he kind of goes back and forth to wherever his expertise is needed, which is still completely beautiful for a human being to kind of put those kind of priorities in place in his life. So he's got a company called Think Food Group, and it's basically the overall company for Jose's restaurants, his hotels, food products, media, educational initiatives, and of course his philanthropy efforts. And their mission is changing the world through the power of food, which essentially is the basis for culinary tourism. And ultimately, our goal here at Flying for Flavor. No coincidence, right? So I like to vote or always say thank you with my dollars for people who, using their business or their success for doing good work. And Jose is one of those chefs that I like to support wherever I am if there's a city that holds one of his acclaimed restaurants. So this trip, I made a point of visiting the Bazaar again at the SLS Beverly Hills Hotel. So it's modern, small tapas plates, cool cocktail lounge, and the most luxurious patisserie that I have ever seen. He has mastered the art of taking a classic Spanish dish with the same combination of flavors, but deconstructing it and reassembling it into something that's eye-catching and unique without losing the flavor that you know and love. So, for example, the classic Spanish tortilla. So yes, I've included the recipe. Don't worry. It's usually a light and juicy omelet with potatoes and onions in it. And the Bazaar version is served layered, moussed, and airy in a glass jar. So you just close your eyes and it tastes exactly how it should, and just much softer. And yes, I've included a bonus video clip right from the restaurant, so it's in the show notes as well. So what does a good touristy day look like here in Santa Monica? So I would say, I guess, maybe a morning walk, stop for a coffee, maybe even bring one back here, late morning browsing around, and then a leisurely lunch someplace. Let's see, classic lunch. Healthy, veggie-laden pizza and a crisp glass of California Chardonnay. That sounds perfect. And then maybe an afternoon stroll along the beach in the famous Santa Monica Pier. If I have time, I'll add in a quick snooze. I am in holidays after all. Or maybe I'll get a little bit more work done just when things are quiet. And then maybe a late dinner at one of the area's culinary hotspots for some local fare, cool tunes, and maybe even a glimpse of a celebrity or two, because this is Los Angeles after all. So I hope you like this little audio tour and introduction to Santa Monica. I've included a full photo gallery, bonus videos, and a bunch of links in the show notes. And again, those show notes are stephaniepichet.ca/flavor32. And I'm also going to work on another travel log blog post with the Airbnb link, an area map, and all kinds of other details so that you can plan your next visit here. So don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts, and make sure to rate us if you can, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, and as always, flyingforflavor.ca. We'll see you next week for our Easter episode, and until then, make sure you travel, make sure you eat, make sure you drink well, because you deserve it. See you next week.